In 1953, Audrey Hepburn suddenly became a global phenomenon after her role in Roman Holiday. But few people know that before becoming a true goddess of cinema, she was once a frail little girl who nearly starved to death during the war and witnessed horrors that even adults struggle to remember. As brilliant as her career was, her private life was equally dark. From unfaithful husbands and shattered dreams of motherhood to the lingering trauma of loss she carried throughout her life. Was the bright light of Hollywood ever enough to erase the wounds she held inside? Only by watching this video to the end will you understand why Audrey Hepburn's real life was completely different from the graceful image we've always seen on screen.
We can't have you walking up and down the Champs-Élysées looking like a tourist undertaker.
Few people know that, before becoming one of the most elegant and iconic women of the 20th century, Audrey Hepburn lived through months of hunger, fear, and crushing isolation. She was born in 1929 in Brussels, Belgium, to an aristocratic family with English-Dutch roots. It seemed as if her life would be paved with red carpets from the very beginning. But everything collapsed quickly. When Audrey was 6, her father, a supporter of fascism, suddenly abandoned the family. That moment left a psychological scar she could never erase. Later, she would quietly admit, "I always felt I wasn't good enough for him to stay." When World War II broke out, Audrey and her mother moved to the Netherlands, hoping to escape the conflict. But war spares no one. When the Nazis invaded the country, 11-year-old Audrey began living in terror and deprivation. Her family was so poor, they survived by eating boiled tulip bulbs just to stay alive. She recalled, "There were nights I lay in bed listening to bombs fall with an empty stomach, but I didn't cry. Tears don't make you any less hungry." Throughout the occupation, Audrey witnessed things no child should ever see. Relatives taken away, innocent people executed in the streets. During this time, she secretly carried documents for the resistance, hiding papers inside her white stockings. A small act, but an incredibly brave one. A young girl forced to grow up in brutality. It was also during this period that Audrey began studying ballet. Every time she stepped onto that old wooden floor, she found a moment of peace. Ballet helped her control her body, her mind. Amid chaos, it was the one place she felt she had power over her own life. But the war didn't just steal her childhood. It stole her dream of becoming a dancer. Years of malnutrition left her body too weak to pursue ballet professionally. The dream faded away. She shifted into modeling, then began auditioning for small roles in theater and television. Everything changed one fateful afternoon in 1951. At the time, Audrey was filming a small movie in Monte Carlo. A writer and playwright named Colette happened to see her. Colette had been searching for someone to play the lead in the stage adaptation of her famous novel, Gigi. After just a few minutes of meeting Audrey, she declared, "This is Gigi." Audrey was cast, and her performance on Broadway captivated audiences in New York. But the real explosion came in 1953, when Audrey was chosen to play Princess Anne in Roman Holiday. The role had originally been intended for Elizabeth Taylor. Yet director William Wyler saw something extraordinary in Audrey, a purity, intelligence, and elegance that stunned the entire production team. Roman Holiday became a major hit, and Audrey won her first ever Academy Award for Best Actress. From that moment on, she became one of the most sought-after faces in Hollywood. Not just for her beauty, but for her presence, her grace, the way she moved as if she barely touched the ground. She was unlike anyone else of the era. In a time dominated by glamorous, fiery icons like Marilyn Monroe and Sophia Loren, Audrey Hepburn stood out through her simplicity, refinement, and timeless poise. Then came Sabrina. Funny Face. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Audrey wasn't just an actress. She became a template, an icon, a way of life. After Breakfast at Tiffany's premiered and turned Audrey Hepburn into a global icon, she stood at the very peak of fame. Every film she appeared in became a major event. Every dress she wore on the street instantly became a trend. But behind the stage lights and applause, Audrey was quietly searching for something simple: happiness. Not the kind found on screen, but the kind found in a real home. She longed for a complete family, something her unstable childhood and the war had never allowed her to have. And then, fate led her to the first man she believed she could build a life with: Mel Ferrer. Mel Ferrer was a well-known American actor and director. The two met in 1953 at a party and quickly discovered a deep connection. Mel, 12 years older, was experienced, calm, and shared her passion for the arts. To Audrey, he wasn't just a lover. He was someone who could guide her, protect her, and share the burdens of the demanding showbiz world. They didn't love each other loudly or impulsively like many Hollywood couples of the era. Their relationship grew slowly, deeply, and always with respect. After some time together, they married in 1954 in Switzerland, a place that would later become Audrey's peaceful final home. In the beginning, married life was warm and quiet. They made films together, walked red carpets side by side, and appeared everywhere as the perfect couple. Audrey always tried to be a devoted wife, even willing to cut back on work to focus on her family. But the thing she wanted most, a child, became the first major trial of the marriage. Audrey suffered multiple miscarriages. The pain left her anxious and emotionally drained. It wasn't until 1960, after years of effort and heartbreak, that she finally gave birth to her first son, Sean Hepburn Ferrer. For Audrey, it was the happiest moment of her life. She paused her career for a long time to be a full-time mother. But that sacrifice slowly created cracks. Mel continued pursuing his directing career and grew increasingly distant. Differences in lifestyle, priorities, and emotional connection widened over time. After 14 years together, they divorced in 1968. Audrey never blamed him. She once said, "I loved with all my heart, and I have no regrets." Her first marriage left her with many wounds, but it also gave her the most precious gift, the son she cherished for the rest of her life. After Audrey Hepburn's marriage to Mel Ferrer ended in 1968, she returned to work, but she was no longer the dazzling star she once was. She had changed. After going through a divorce, becoming a single mother, and carrying quiet emotional wounds, Audrey entered a new stage of life, one defined by maturity, calmness, and a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. She no longer sought the spotlight. What she wanted now was a peaceful home and a genuine companion. And once again, fate stepped in. In 1969, Audrey met Andrea Dotti, an Italian psychiatrist, during a vacation in Greece. He was nearly 10 years younger, but that didn't make Audrey hesitate. In fact, she was drawn to his humor, confidence, and the refreshing difference he brought into her life. After only a short time together, Audrey believed Andrea could give her the new, happier life she longed for. They married in 1969 in Switzerland, and Audrey soon moved to Rome to live with him. In 1970, she gave birth to her second son, Luca Dotti. From that point on, Audrey stepped away completely from the screen. No more filming schedules, no more red carpets. She devoted herself fully to being a wife and mother. In the early years, her marriage to Andrea seemed peaceful. She learned Italian, blended into local culture, took her children to school each day, and quietly continued her charity work. She rarely appeared in public, but those who met her described a humble, gentle, and deeply caring Audrey. However, their age gap, differences in personality, and Andrea's lifestyle eventually created cracks. Audrey was introverted and cherished tranquility, while Andrea enjoyed parties, nightlife, and socializing. Rumors of his affairs began to surface, and Audrey seemed to know. But she chose silence for her children. And because she believed that keeping her family intact, even just on the surface, mattered more than pride or resentment. She once said, "I always wanted to keep my family together, even if it was only on the outside." But every kind of endurance has its limit. After years of quiet suffering, Audrey and Andrea officially divorced in 1982. This time, she didn't cry or say much. She simply withdrew to the Swiss countryside, the quietest place she had ever known, and lived a private, simple life, still full of love. Audrey never married again, but she was not alone, because in the end, she held on to the most precious things she ever had, her kindness, and a heart that never stopped forgiving. In 1980, Audrey met Robert Wolders, a Dutch actor, widower, and deeply seasoned by life. They crossed paths at a small gathering in Switzerland, the place Audrey had long chosen as her sanctuary. By then, neither of them was young anymore. Both had endured loss, betrayal, and dreams that never came true. Perhaps that was why they connected so easily. Not through fiery passion, but through quiet, gentle understanding. Robert wasn't a dazzling celebrity like the men who came before him in Audrey's life. He didn't bring glamour or fame. Instead, he gave her something she had always longed for: peace. With Robert, Audrey was finally allowed to be herself. Not a movie star, not an icon, not the perfect wife. She could laugh freely, live slowly, tend to her garden, walk her dogs, and spend afternoons reading. During her years with Robert, Audrey no longer had to maintain an image or fear betrayal. He stood by her, patient, calm, and endlessly loving. They never married. Audrey once said, "We don't need marriage to prove anything. We have love, and that's enough." Their relationship didn't need vows. It was proven through the life they shared. The meals she cooked for him, their trips to UNICEF field missions, and the quiet, ordinary moments no one ever noticed. When Audrey discovered she had colon cancer in late 1992, Robert stayed by her side every hour, every minute. He flew her back to Switzerland in a private jet and made every arrangement so she could spend her final days in absolute peace, in the place where she felt safest. In those final days, Audrey felt no fear because she knew she wasn't alone. Robert sat beside her, holding her hand, whispering comfort. He was there when she closed her eyes for the last time in January 1993. After her passing, Robert continued living a simple life in Switzerland, tending to the garden they once cared for together. He never remarried, and he always called Audrey the love of my life. In the final years of her life, Audrey Hepburn chose to live quietly. No more films, no silk gowns, no glamorous parties. Instead, she spent her days in a small garden in Switzerland, taking her dogs for morning walks and reading by the window each afternoon. But she didn't retreat into the past. She devoted the rest of her life to humanitarian work, becoming a UNICEF ambassador and traveling to some of the poorest places in the world to bring hope to children in need. She went to Africa, to Asia, holding each child as if she were holding her own wounded childhood. No one could have imagined that the fragile woman who once walked the red carpet at Cannes would one day kneel quietly to wipe the tears of an abandoned child in the desert. In 1992, Audrey discovered she had colon cancer. The illness struck as suddenly as a lightning flash. Robert Wolders, the companion of her life, immediately brought her back to Switzerland so she could spend her final days in the place she loved most. In the last weeks, Audrey did not complain or despair. She spent her time writing letters, thanking every person who had touched her life. She wasn't afraid of death. She was only afraid she wouldn't have enough time to love a little more. On January 20th, 1993, Audrey Hepburn passed away in her sleep. Peacefully, softly, exactly the way she had lived her whole life. Audrey left behind no castle, no vast fortune, but she left something far more precious, an example of how to live, of kindness, inner elegance, and limitless compassion. More than 3 decades after her passing, the world still speaks her name. Not because she was a star, but because she was good. If this story moved you, please hit subscribe so we can continue sharing more journeys of beauty, depth, and authenticity. Every subscription is a word of encouragement, a step toward preserving the values that time can never erase. Thank you for listening.